Imagine planning a romantic getaway to celebrate love, only for it to spiral into a nightmarish end. What would you do if the person you vowed to love and trust became the very reason your life was tragically cut short? How do you reconcile the promises of forever with the dark realities that were hidden in plain sight? These are the questions at the heart of today's chilling case. What began as a seemingly idyllic first anniversary celebration, a trip meant to rekindle love and create memories, quickly descended into a macabre tale of betrayal, manipulation, and ultimately, a horrifying act of violence. This is the story of how trust can be weaponized, love can turn lethal, and how even the brightest futures can be extinguished in an instant. Today, we'll delve into the harrowing case of Emily Schwarz and Joseph Frazzo, a couple who appeared to have everything going for them: love, dreams, and a promising future. But behind closed doors, their relationship was a battlefield of secrets, insecurities, and unresolved conflicts. This story takes us deep into the heart of a small Vermont town, where what was meant to be a romantic getaway became the stage for a crime so shocking that it left an entire community reeling. From the red flags that went unnoticed to the tragic final hours, we'll uncover the details of a case that is both heartbreaking and deeply unsettling. Before we dive into the haunting twists and turns of this tragic tale, take a moment to join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts. Like this video, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Here at True Crime Cases HQ, we're dedicated to uncovering the stories that demand to be told. Stories that make us question the darkest corners of human nature and remind us of the importance of vigilance in our own lives. As we begin, let's reflect on the fragility of relationships. How much do we really know about the people closest to us? How do we navigate the fine line between trust and caution? These are the questions we'll explore as we unravel the tragic and deeply unsettling story of Emily Schwarz, a young woman whose dreams of love were shattered in the most unimaginable way. This is not just a story of murder. It's a tale of manipulation, heartbreak, and justice. So settle in as we take you on a journey into the darkness that hides behind the facade of love. To truly understand the depths of this tragic story, we must first get to know the individuals at its center. Emily Schwarz and Joseph Frazzo were not just names in a case file. They were two people, full of dreams, complexities, and contradictions. A young couple who seemed destined for happiness, but instead became embroiled in a nightmare. Emily Schwarz was just 22 years old, vibrant and full of life. Those who knew her described her as radiant, someone who could brighten a room with her presence. She had big dreams for her future, and her love for travel reflected her free-spirited personality. Emily had always envisioned a life built on love and partnership, and when she met Joseph Frazzo, she believed she had found that in him. Her family and friends recall her excitement as her relationship with Joseph blossomed. She was hopeful, passionate, and ready to build a happy married life with him. For Emily, this anniversary trip was not just a celebration. It was a symbol of all the good things she believed lay ahead. She eagerly planned every detail, looking forward to spending time with Joseph and deepening their bond. In her heart, she was optimistic about their future and excited about what was to come, even as cracks in their relationship began to surface. Joseph Frazzo, 6 years her senior at 26, seemed like the perfect partner at first. With his magnetic personality and charm, he quickly won Emily over. Their whirlwind romance, filled with passion and spontaneity, led them to marriage despite their age difference and the challenges it could bring. To outsiders, their relationship seemed intense, even enviable, a story of two people swept off their feet by love. But as with many relationships, there were layers beneath the surface. Joseph's past relationships were marked by conflict, and the shadow of his personal struggles lingered. He painted himself as someone misunderstood, trying to find peace in his connection with Emily. Early on, there were hints of tension. Small arguments over trust, communication, and the difficulties of blending their lives together. Yet, these red flags didn't seem insurmountable. After all, they were newlyweds navigating the complexities of a marriage. Like many couples, they had their challenges, but also their dreams. For Joseph, this anniversary trip was an opportunity to reconnect with Emily, to show her the life he imagined for them. He envisioned it as a time to mend fences and create lasting memories. Together, they appeared to have the perfect story: young love, shared adventures, and a future full of promise. But as we'll soon uncover, behind the smiles and hopeful plans lay a darker reality, one that would unravel in the most tragic way imaginable. Like many love stories, Emily Schwarz and Joseph Frazzo's relationship appeared beautiful from a distance, a whirlwind romance that led to marriage and dreams of a shared future. But beneath the surface, their union was fraught with hidden tensions, unresolved issues, and red flags that hinted at the tragedy to come. As we peel back the layers of their relationship, troubling patterns begin to emerge. Joseph's past relationships were marked by significant conflict. By his own admission, he often found himself entangled in toxic dynamics, with previous partners displaying what he described as aggressive tendencies. He carried these experiences into his marriage with Emily, framing himself as a victim of repeated physical and emotional abuse. According to Joseph, Emily occasionally exhibited physical aggression during their arguments, an allegation that would later play a pivotal role in his defense. He claimed she lashed out physically when frustrated, escalating minor disagreements into full-blown fights. While there's no way to know for certain what transpired behind closed doors, these accusations painted a picture of a relationship teetering on the edge of dysfunction. Yet, Emily's friends and family saw a different side to her. To them, she was loving, hopeful, and eager to make her marriage work. The cracks that were visible to Joseph may have been symptoms of deeper issues between them, arguments over trust and communication that grew more frequent as time went on. Subtle but unmistakable, these cracks began to widen as the honeymoon phase of their relationship faded. Joseph's need for control, combined with Emily's desire for independence, created friction that neither seemed equipped to handle. Their arguments ranged from petty disagreements to more serious disputes over their future, and Joseph's apparent lack of fidelity. Trust was eroding, communication was breaking down, and the seeds of resentment were beginning to take root. In October 2021, their relationship was already under strain when Joseph suggested a romantic anniversary trip to Vermont. To Emily, the idea was a glimmer of hope, an opportunity to reconnect and rebuild what had been faltering. She embraced the trip as a chance to celebrate their love and find common ground. Their destination was a remote area near Bolton, Vermont, not far from the Canadian border. They traveled in their camper van, which had been carefully outfitted to create a cozy, intimate space for the weekend. The van itself was a symbol of the adventurous spirit they once shared, a reminder of the love that had brought them together. Joseph's plans included spending time with his sister, Nicole, who had rented an Airbnb in the area. Emily was excited to meet her sister-in-law and looked forward to the sense of family and connection the trip promised. But beneath the surface of these plans, tension simmered. From the moment they arrived, there were signs that all was not well. Emily appeared anxious, perhaps anticipating the challenges of navigating her strained relationship with Joseph. Joseph, on the other hand, seemed determined to keep up appearances, even as his own frustrations bubbled beneath the surface. The breaking point came on the night of October 15th, 2021. After setting up camp, Emily and Joseph's evening began with drinks and small talk, but it quickly turned sour. What started as a minor disagreement escalated into a heated argument, with accusations and harsh words flying between them. Emily's frustrations boiled over, and she made the decision to leave. She told Joseph she couldn't continue the trip and wanted to end the marriage. This declaration struck a nerve, igniting a volatile reaction in Joseph. Joseph later claimed that Emily's behavior during the argument became erratic, that she was agitated and aggressive. However, others might interpret this as a woman standing her ground in a relationship that had become untenable. Emily's decision to leave wasn't just an emotional response. It was a moment of clarity, a realization that their relationship could no longer be salvaged. But Joseph didn't see it that way. In his eyes, Emily's decision to walk away wasn't just a rejection of the trip. It was a rejection of him. The argument reached a fever pitch, setting the stage for the events that would unfold later that night. In the quiet darkness of the Vermont woods, surrounded by the stillness of nature, what should have been a peaceful celebration became a crucible of anger, frustration, and despair. The heated exchange, the unspoken resentments, and the weight of their past came crashing down, leading to a tragedy no one could have foreseen. As we move forward, the full scope of what happened that night will come to light, a chilling sequence of events that forever changed the lives of everyone involved. The events of October 15th, 2021, marked a turning point in Joseph Frazzo and Emily Schwartz's story. What began as a heated argument escalated into an unimaginable act of violence, an act that would forever alter the lives of their families and send shockwaves through their community. According to Joseph's account, the argument that had been brewing all evening reached its breaking point. Emily, he claimed, became aggressive, shouting at him, throwing objects, and even striking him. He insisted that her actions forced him to defend himself. Joseph told investigators that Emily had threatened his life and reached for a gun, leaving him no choice but to act in self-defense. But the details of his story were murky, riddled with inconsistencies and gaps. Joseph admitted to shooting Emily, firing twice into the left side of her head while she was lying in bed. He described feeling terrified and claimed that he feared for his life. However, the evidence painted a far more chilling picture, one that suggested premeditation rather than self-defense. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, Joseph didn't call for help. He didn't alert the authorities or even reach out to Emily's family. Instead, he chose to stay in the camper with her lifeless body, attempting to carry on as though nothing had happened. For several days, Joseph lived in the camper alongside Emily's remains. During this time, he tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, even spending time with his sister and going out for coffee and meals. When asked about Emily's absence, Joseph lied, telling friends and family that she had gone out with friends or decided to take some time for herself. Behind closed doors, however, Joseph was grappling with the horrifying reality of what he had done. He later admitted to dismembering Emily's body, a decision he claimed was made out of desperation. Using a serrated saw, he cut her remains into smaller pieces, placing them in garbage bags to make them easier to dispose of. The very act of dismemberment underscored the depth of Joseph's actions. This wasn't a panicked, impulsive decision. It was calculated and deliberate. Yet, even as he carried out this gruesome task, he continued to lie to those around him, hoping to buy himself time. While Joseph was trying to cover his tracks, Emily's family grew increasingly worried. Emily had always stayed in touch, and her sudden silence raised immediate red flags. When days passed without any contact, her family reported her missing, prompting an investigation by Vermont law enforcement. At the same time, Joseph's behavior began to raise suspicion among those closest to him. One of his friends, Spencer, noticed that Joseph seemed unusually quiet and preoccupied. When pressed for answers, Joseph finally admitted that Emily was back in the van, but was no longer alive. He also confessed to having hurt her, a chilling revelation that left his friend shaken and alarmed. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Spencer acted quickly. He called 911 and alerted the authorities, providing critical information that would ultimately lead to Joseph's arrest. The facade Joseph had worked so hard to maintain began to crumble, exposing the horrifying truth about what had happened in that camper. As investigators delved deeper into the case, they uncovered evidence that contradicted Joseph's claims of self-defense, pointing instead to a premeditated act of violence. What began as a romantic getaway had spiraled into a nightmare, a tragic, senseless crime that would haunt everyone involved. As we continue, we'll explore how investigators unraveled Joseph's lies, pieced together the evidence, and ultimately brought him to justice. The horrifying truth of what happened to Emily Schwarz didn't remain hidden for long. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Joseph Frazzo's version of events didn't match the evidence. What followed was a meticulous police investigation, a dramatic trial, and, finally, justice for Emily and her family. When Emily's family reported her missing, Vermont law enforcement acted quickly. Their initial focus was on finding Emily, but as they dug deeper into her disappearance, their attention shifted to Joseph. His behavior raised red flags, his inconsistent stories, his failure to report Emily missing, and his increasingly erratic actions all pointed to something far more sinister than a simple misunderstanding. Police questioned Joseph multiple times, but his explanations didn't add up. He claimed Emily had left to take an Uber and hadn't returned, but there was no record of her taking a ride or leaving the area. Investigators also noticed that Joseph had been using Emily's phone, turning it off and on, and sending misleading messages to her friends and family. As investigators pressed further, the evidence began to pile up. Forensic teams searched the camper and uncovered bloodstains that had been hastily cleaned but not completely erased. The remains of Emily's body, dismembered and stored in garbage bags, were found nearby. Forensic analysis confirmed that multiple knives and tools had been used to cut her body, and some of these still had her DNA on them. The evidence painted a gruesome picture. Emily had been shot twice in the head while lying in bed, and her body showed multiple stab wounds, injuries inflicted after her death. This was no act of self-defense, as Joseph had claimed. It was a brutal, premeditated crime. In addition to the physical evidence, police found digital traces that contradicted Joseph's account. Messages and search histories revealed his attempts to cover up the crime, including purchases of cleaning supplies and tools used to dismember Emily. His efforts to lie to police, family members, and even close friends only strengthened the case against him. Joseph's trial was a dramatic and emotional affair, filled with shocking revelations and powerful testimony. Taking the stand in his own defense, Joseph painted himself as a victim. He insisted that Emily had been abusive and claimed he acted in self-defense after she threatened him with a gun. But the prosecution systematically dismantled his claims. They pointed out the inconsistencies in his story and highlighted the forensic evidence that contradicted his version of events. For example, Emily's body showed no signs of a struggle, and the placement of the gunshot wounds suggested she was lying down, defenseless, when Joseph shot her. One of the most chilling moments of the trial came when prosecutors described Joseph's actions after the murder. Instead of calling for help, he lived with Emily's body in the camper for days, went about his life as if nothing had happened, and ultimately dismembered her remains in an attempt to dispose of the evidence. These actions, they argued, were not the actions of someone acting in self-defense. They were the actions of someone trying to cover up a deliberate crime. The jury listened intently as the prosecution argued that Joseph's actions were premeditated. They pointed to the fact that he brought Emily to the same location where his ex-wife had lived, suggesting that he had been stewing over unresolved issues. They also emphasized the sheer brutality of the crime, arguing that it reflected anger and control, not fear or self-defense. In the end, the jury deliberated for only a short time before returning a unanimous verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Following his conviction, Joseph Frazzo faced the harshest penalty available: life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Emily's family, the sentence brought a measure of closure, but also a lifetime of grief. Emily's mother described her daughter as a bright, loving young woman who had her entire life ahead of her, a life stolen in an act of senseless violence. The courtroom was filled with emotion as the sentence was handed down. While the verdict ensured Joseph would never harm anyone else, it couldn't undo the pain and loss inflicted on Emily's loved ones. Her family expressed hope that her story would serve as a warning to others about the importance of recognizing red flags and seeking help in toxic relationships. Joseph, now behind bars, continues to maintain his claim of self-defense. But for the jury, the evidence spoke louder than his words. The trial and its outcome sent a clear message. Justice had been served for Emily Schwarz, and her tragic story would not be forgotten. As we come to the end of Emily Schwartz's tragic story, it's impossible not to reflect on the deeper questions it raises about relationships, trust, and the warning signs we sometimes ignore. How do we recognize the red flags in our relationships before it's too late? Emily was a young woman full of hope and love, yet she found herself entangled in a marriage that, from the outside, seemed full of promise, but was marked by tension and dysfunction behind closed doors. The early signs were there: arguments, struggles with trust, and Joseph's troubling behavior. But like many people, Emily likely believed these challenges could be overcome. This story forces us to ask ourselves, how much do we really know about the people we choose to love and trust? It's easy to overlook subtle warning signs, to rationalize hurtful behavior, or to hope that things will get better with time. But at what cost? Joseph Frazzo portrayed himself as the victim in this relationship, claiming that Emily was physically aggressive and difficult to handle. Yet the evidence tells a different story, a story of manipulation, control, and an escalating cycle of conflict that ended in tragedy. Relationships are complicated, but understanding the difference between normal challenges and dangerous patterns can be the difference between life and death. Emily's story is a painful reminder of the importance of addressing relationship conflicts early and seeking help when needed. No one should feel trapped in a situation where they are unsafe, unheard, or unsupported. If you or someone you know is in a relationship marked by constant tension, controlling behavior, or physical violence, it's crucial to speak up and seek support. Love and trust are powerful emotions, but they can also be manipulated. Joseph used Emily's trust against her, painting himself as a loving husband while hiding his darker intentions. This manipulation, combined with his inability to handle rejection and conflict, led to a devastating outcome. It's vital to remember that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, open communication, and a commitment to resolving conflicts in a constructive way. If these elements are missing, it's a sign that something is wrong. Seeking help from a trusted friend, family member, or professional can be a critical step in breaking free from a toxic or dangerous situation. Now that you've heard Emily's story, we want to hear from you. Have you ever ignored red flags in a relationship? What do you think about Joseph's defense? Was it an act of self-preservation, or was it the culmination of a deeper, more sinister pattern? Share your thoughts in the comments below. By sharing your experiences and insights, you might help someone else recognize the warning signs in their own life. And remember, if you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, resources are available. Don't hesitate to reach out for help. It could save a life. This story is more than just a case. It reminds us to be vigilant in our own lives, to pay attention to the warning signs, and to support those around us who may be in need. Emily's life was tragically cut short, but her story can serve as a lesson to us all about the importance of love, trust, and, above all, safety in our relationships. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the darkest corners of human behavior and shine a light on the lessons we can learn from them. As we conclude this heartbreaking story, we want to thank you for taking the time to explore this case with us. Stories like Emily Schwartz's are difficult but necessary. They remind us of the importance of staying informed, vigilant, and supportive of those around us. If you found this story compelling and want to hear more cases like it, don't forget to support our channel. Take a moment to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Every like, comment, and subscription helps us continue bringing you these important stories. At True Crime Cases HQ, we're committed to uncovering the truths behind some of the most shocking cases, while also sparking meaningful conversations. Your engagement not only helps us grow, but also ensures these stories reach more people, potentially raising awareness about the dangers of toxic relationships and the importance of justice. But the journey doesn't end here. True crime has a way of keeping us on the edge of our seats, and next time, we'll dive into a case that's even more baffling. A disappearance that turned into one of the most perplexing true crime mysteries of the decade. Was it an abduction, a staged escape, or something even stranger? Tune in to find out. It's a story you won't want to miss. Finally, let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Emily's story? Were there moments in her relationship with Joseph that resonated with you, or raised questions? Have you ever encountered red flags in your own relationships? Or do you know someone who has? Your insights and experiences could make a difference, helping others recognize the warning signs of a dangerous relationship before it's too late. This channel isn't just about telling stories. It's about building a community where we can discuss, learn, and support one another. So, share your thoughts, engage with others, and let's create a space where we can talk openly about these difficult but crucial topics. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on True Crime Cases HQ.